Hello friends, welcome to Growing Chess channel and episode 4 of Steinitz Zukertort first World Championship match played in 1886. Zukertort now is leading with a score of 2-1 after 3 games. If you have not checked our 3 game analysis videos, please do check them. I'll put the link in the description below. In game 4, Steinitz as white started with e4. If you remember, in game 2, Steinitz was playing white and he had played the Scotch 4 knights opening. And he faced a defeat. So, in the game 4, he decided to change the opening. He started with e4, alright, after e5, knight of 3, knight c6. In game 2, he went for this d4 approach. This time, he played the Royal Lopez, and Black had prepared the very strong Berlin defense against the Royal Lopez. Black played knight f6 here, castles, knight into e4, rook e1, knight goes back to d6, knight into e5. This is pretty standard stuff for the Berlin defense. Here, Black's main line goes with bishop e7. Knight into e5 is also an opening line, but it is not one of the mainstream ideas as compared to bishop e7. Bishop e7 is played quite often as compared to knight e5. Rook into e5 was played, bishop coming to e7, stopping the check. White doesn't want to give up this bishop, obviously, so bishop comes to f1. The square is controlled, and this is a fairly good square for the bishop. He can in future also think about defending a few light squares on the king side if needed. Okay, short castles was played. White grabbed some center with d4, bishop f6. In Berlin, generally in this line, Black wants to develop his bishop here, get this knight out, and then get the d5 c6 pawn structure. This is ideally what Black wants to do. But after rook e1, Black should immediately go ahead with knight f5 to avail this d5 c6 idea. Now you'll see in the game that d5 was not allowed due to Black's move order. What Black played is rook e8 first, fighting for the e file. Now after rook e8, White went on for c3, strong pawn chain on the dark squares to control this bishop's activity. Rook into e1, queen into e1, knight f5. So Black went on for this move order. Now his idea is to get this light squared bishop out from this diagonal by playing d5. But White played a good prophylactic move here, bishop f4. Development of the bishop and eyeing the c7 pawn. Now if you see, queen coming on e1 is also eyeing on this e8 square where there is a back rank weakness. So if Black goes for d5 here, there is bishop into c7, losing a pawn simply. In fact, it's winning for White now. So Black has to play d6, which he did in the game. Knight d2, development, bishop e6, another developing move, bishop d3. This bishop is ready to jump back to this strong diagonal. I wanted to get my queen side pieces out. That's the reason why bishop had stepped on this f1 square. Knight h4 was played. Now, what is the idea behind this knight h4 move? This knight wants to regroup itself because the knight on f5 was not doing much. This knight could also go to g6 and harass this bishop on f4, and at the same time also control this light square diagonal. And if needed, the knight could also step back to f8 to keep an eye on this h7 weakness where this bishop is eyeing on. Okay, so after knight h4, White played knight e4, trying to pressurize this dark square bishop, which Black cannot really save. I mean, this bishop is not an active piece as compared to this knight. If you try to stop this exchange, this knight is pretty active in the center. So Black would be happy if White decides to exchange it for this bishop. So Black happily played knight g6, saying that you can exchange my bishop. White stepped to d2 with his bishop, saving his bishop pair. Black started expanding now, which was the original plan. If you remember, black wanted to play d5 c6 earlier, but it was not possible because of this tactical threat bishop into c7. Now after d5, white had to play knight g3. This could have been a better move, keeping the knight on the king side, trying to create a few threats on the king side if possible. Maybe in future the knight can end up on f5. You can also try and double up on the e file and create some threats. But white instead played knight c5, which is not the best move in this position. But then again, as this is not a very dynamic position, this knight also managed to regroup itself, like we'll see in the game. After knight c5, bishop went back to c8, defending b7. Now what happens if black plays b6, knight into e6, f into e6, black is simply losing a pawn. Now if you consider this exchange, you can also play a move like queen c8. But does black really want to allow this exchange? I don't think so. Because if you compare these two bishops, this bishop is kind of passive because of this pawn chain in the center. But this bishop is the one which is the most active piece for black. Black would never want this bishop to be exchanged for this knight. So after knight c5, went back, bishop c8, queen e3, trying to get his rook out on the e file, b6. Now b6 is start of a long-term plan actually. He could have played c6 and created this pawn structure, but then his queen side is kind of passive. So black came up with a different kind of an approach to hit in the center. After b6, knight came back to b3, queen d6, queen e8 check. Now actually, if you look at this move queen d6, I would have preferred here playing a move like bishop e6 again, because the bishop's job of protecting b7 is over. The knight has already stepped back and this bishop cannot be attacked from c5 or d4 now. So this bishop had to come back here. That is what I feel. But after queen d6, I think white only considered queen e8. He will play knight f8, and after knight f8, black seems to be fine, seems to be doing fine, and there is no direct threat from white side. But both the players missed a resource here. White could have played bishop into g6 first before queen e8 check. Now what is the difference? I'll tell you. Here, if queen e8 check, which was played in the game, black went for knight f8. Now what happens here is, after rook e1, black is in a position to play bishop b7. This f7 pawn is not hanging. But if he had played the move bishop g6 here, instead of queen e8, black has to take obviously with the h pawn. Now you can play queen e8 check. If black goes queen f8, there is queen c6, simple double attack. Okay, black can play bishop e6, but then also there is one more attack on c7, losing a pawn, which is clearly better for white. So here he has to go king h7, and then can he take this pawn? No, because the queen is trapped. But the point here is white would not take it. But what white would do is simply play rook e1. And now black is not in a position to play bishop b7 to develop his rook and attack on the queen. Because if bishop b7, now there is no bishop b6, black will simply lose a pawn on f7. So bishop into g6 was a much better move. White played queen e8, as we've already seen, knight f8, rook e1, and then bishop b7 attacking the queen. Queen had to step back to e3. Okay, black started getting his pieces slightly to better positions. Knight e6. Now if you look at this knight is heck of a traveler. You see, the knight was on d6. From d6 it has come to f5, h4, g6, from g6 f8, and then it has come to e6. So a lot of regrouping and maneuvering with this knight has been done. But finally I feel the knight on e6 now is a better placed knight, because it is also blocking the e file and is ready to jump to these squares if needed. Okay, after knight e6, white played queen f3, rook d8, queen f5. So what is white's idea is trying to provoke a weakness in black's camp on the king side. Okay, black doesn't want to commit any weakness by making a pawn move. Obviously h6 is not at all possible as well, like you can just play this and then f4, this check, f5, king is in trouble. So black went on for knight f8 here. Bishop f4, queen c6. After queen c6, white saw that his these four pieces are well placed. They are doing their duties correctly. But if you look at this knight, which we had discussed that it went on this c5 square, which was slightly dubious, it should have gone to g3, where it could have jumped to h5 in future, and along with these pieces, it could have coordinated. So knight came back to d2, trying to regroup itself. Bishop c8, attacking the queen. Queen went to h5, g6, queen e2, knight e6, bishop g3, queen b7, knight f3. Now comes a very interesting moment in the game. Zukertort found a very nice plan to create some initiative in the position. If you don't play this move, the position is kind of dull and white can create a lot of things on the king side. And also white can create some counterplay with h4, h5 on the king side if given an opportunity. But black immediately hits in the center with this next move, c5. After c5, white's d4 pawn is under some pressure. So white has to take d into c5, b into c5. After b into c5, knight e5 was played. And the original idea behind this c5 pawn break after b file being opened up was c4. What is the point behind c4? Zukertort wants to fix the b2 pawn by controlling b3 square very well. After b3 square is controlled, this pawn cannot move, and this pawn is a potential weakness for black to attack on. After c4, white played bishop b1. Bishop c2 can also be played because queen into b2 is not possible due to this tactical shot knight into f7. If king into f7, then the point is white wants to play bishop g6 check, discovering an attack on the queen. So bishop c2 is also playable, but white decided to play bishop b1. After bishop b1, black played bishop g7. Now black's bishop was hanging on f6 for a long time, and as soon as he spotted an opportunity and time to put it back on g7, he did it. Because now on g7, the king side looks safer. Also, the f6 hanging point is not present anymore. After bishop g7, rook d1 was played. Now bishop d7. If you look at this bishop, okay, it's on an open diagonal, but black's counterplay is on the queen side because of this b2 potential weakness, and also on this b3 square, the control for the b3 square. So bishop d7 has also ideas related to bishop a4 in future. But white played queen f3, attacking on f7. So the bishop had to step back to e8. Now, okay, the bishop has to leave this diagonal, but as I already said that the bishop doesn't have much on the king side. The whole black's plan is on the queen side. So bishop e8, keeping an eye on the a4 square whenever he wants to go there. Here, the next move was a big surprise for the whole world. Steinitz played knight into c4. Just looking at the spin, maybe Steinitz had seen rook into d8 here. Idea being, if queen into f3 now, there is rook into e8 intermediate check, then you can play g into f3. But maybe Steinitz missed knight into d8 here, which defends the queen. And the knight on c4 was sacrificed for no reason at all. Rook into d8 and the knight into d8 was played in the game. White saw that he is a piece down simply with no counterplay for that extra knight. So he decided not to exchange the queens, but the game is already lost. Black played knight e6. Okay, you can take this pawn, but then b2 is also hanging, c3 will be hanging. Both the sides have 2 bishops. So Steinitz decided to resign here, and with this gifted point to Zukertort, Zukertort has now won 3 games in a row, making the score 3-1. Also, let me tell you, in the next video, we'll be analyzing the game 5 where Zukertort completely changed his strategy as white pieces. Stay tuned for that game. If you have found our video instructive, please do like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, do not forget to click on the bell icon to get notifications as soon as we upload our new video. Thanks a lot for watching.